Welcome everybody. This is Terry Wilderman with the Attractionpreneur Hangout. This is our last and final series, or video I should say, on the Mastermind series. And I'm very excited to have our guest today, Mark Silver, who is going to be adding his perspective to what a mastermind is and what a mastermind isn't. Welcome to the call, Mark. It's so exciting to have you here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Okay, so before we continue going, I'd like to tell everybody a little bit about you. So I'm going to read your bio so that folks can get a real clear vision of why it is that you're here and what it is that you have to offer. Mark Silver is the founder of Heart of Business and a successful business teacher and healer who brings an active connection with the divine to his work. Mark leads the team at Heart of Business who have helped thousands of entrepreneurs and small business owners to integrate the nitty-gritty of business with the heart-opening truths of spirit in a way that actually helps the business be profitable and make a difference in the world. In his past, Mark has run a magazine, worked as a paramedic, operated a distribution business. He's been an activist and worked in the nonprofit area. He has failed horribly in business. I love that, Mark. He has failed horribly in business, and he has succeeded beautifully each in turn. He trained at the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism in organizational and business healing. He is a Sufi healer and teacher. And his vision is that in the process of your business becoming profitable and sustainable, your heart will deepen in knowing and its own truth. I'm so excited to have someone with your background talking about masterminds on my show. So let the fun begin, Mark. Let the fun begin.
Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. Let's do a deep. Something tells me this is going to be a deep dive off a very, very high diving board. Okay, so Mark, tell me about your experience in general with masterminds.
Yeah, so years ago, I'd started a mastermind group with some friends and peers, and that lasted for about a year or so. And then I ended up moving into the mastermind group that I'm in now. It's actually called a brain trust. It was called the Brain Trust when I joined it. There were people in it who had been clients of mine, and then there was one person who was my client who I was going to actually turn around and hire as my coach because we were just so well matched. And then I said, hey, I know you have a brain trust, you have a mastermind. Do you think I could maybe, wiggle my way into that? And they were gracious enough to let me in, and we ended up, we've been in that group. I lose track of time. It's been 8-9 years at least that we've been in that, and it's, I credit it with so much, just so much in terms of what's changed for me personally and what's changed for my business, and they've just become such close friends. It's an amazing experience.
How many people are in this brain trust?
6. There's 6 of us.
Okay. And over all of these years, has it been consistent in terms of the same people, or have they shifted and changed?
Most of the people have been the same. No one, since I joined, I guess just before I joined, there were some people who exited because they were in the earlier phase of the group also. But since I've been in, no one has left, but we have added. So we were at, I think, at 4 or 5. It's all lost in the mist of memory, right? But but we have added 1 or 2 people over the years.
Cool. Now, with this brain trust, is this a peer-led brain trust, or is it more of a facilitated type?
No, it's completely peer-led. I mean, all of us have a great deal of experience as teachers and facilitators, and so we have a real flow. One of the things that we do is once a year we come together in an in-person retreat. We meet virtually a lot during the year, but so our in-person retreat, and we used to put a lot more time and energy into the structure of those retreats, but we've gotten to know each other so well that we don't really put a lot of planning into the structuring of it because we have this experience and we know each other pretty well. So yeah, it's totally peer-led.
Okay. So I'm going to ask one other question because I know that this has been a common question asked throughout the series. Is there a financial investment in this, or is it something where the six of you just come together?
They just come together. There's nothing. Yeah.
Now, one thing that we didn't talk about in the last few masterminds, which I'd like to ask you about, is when we come to these masterminds, sometimes there are people that, and you alluded to this, that in the beginning, they're at the beginning stages of your businesses, and there are others that are much more advanced in their businesses. Do you feel that it's important to have people who are at the same stage of their business that are involved with the mastermind?
Um, I think it very much depends on the people and the intention that you have around it. The truth is that all of us have experience in business and have had successful businesses. And one person, two of them actually, had pretty much complete new startups over the last few years. And one has what you would call a very new, very nascent business in terms of the development of it, but she has such experience in her background that she's not new at business. And so
Got it.
we span between, someone who people basically have a personal practice and it's, not generating a tremendous amount of money, but it's where it needs to be for her, to another member who, their company makes more than $1 million a year doing corporate training. So it's like there's quite a wide span in terms of who we're serving. I think that what for us is the positive benefit is that we're all so well matched for each other, and we have such a mix of personality and strengths, and we also know each other so well. The main benefit is not the tactics and strategy, but just that we know each other's blind spots and we can help each other see what kind of patterns we're in. It's like there's some pat phrases that we have for each other that, a lot of times we can just kind of put it on, it's like, just, okay, just push the button and say the
Got
phrase
it.
and bring them out. Do you know what I mean? So.
I know exactly what you mean. I'm sure our audience does too. So what I'm hearing from you, if I understand correctly, is it's not necessarily about whether a business is new or not. It's more of the experience that comes behind having a business. So someone can come in with a brand new business, but if they have business experience in the past that has been successful, it's that understanding, that underlying understanding of what makes things work.
I
That
think that, yeah, exactly, because I think that there's we all have our specialties and we all have things that we lean into each other for. Oh yeah, this person's good at that and this person's good at that. But what you don't want is a mastermind group where one person or two people have a tremendous amount of experience and others are completely newbies, so that one person just ends up teaching the others, and that can really create a lot of imbalance in the group. But you don't have to be perfectly balanced, but there should be some sense of like a balancing of gifts, right? So that there's a really organic flow between who you're leaning into and who is taking up the mantle of leadership or focus or support in any particular moment.
And Mark, I really appreciate what it is that you're saying here, because I have been in a situation where I signed on for a mastermind group and we had a welcoming lunch, and I sat around and everybody started introducing themselves. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I have about 30 years business experience above most of these people. They were absolute brand new newbies, and what you talked about is actually what happened, that I got to a point where there were several times I ended up leaving the group and I'm like, this isn't what I want. This isn't working. And I walked away from it because it didn't feel good. I wanted to be with the group of my peers, and that really is important to talk about, that you are in a group of people that can really support you and take you to the next level. instead of you bringing everybody behind you
Hmm.
to reach
Yeah,
where you are.
and it can be hard to find that group, right? When a lot of our clients really look for mastermind groups, and it's obviously, if you're in the earlier stages of business building, it's easier to find peers, and if you're in the later stages of development, it
Hmm.
can be harder sometimes to find the people because there's so many different boxes that need to be checked for it to, there's like a chemistry, there's uh, there's like it's funny because you want to be really comfortable. Like, I love the people in my mastermind and my brain trust. Like, we love each other. Like, we get together and all we do is laugh and have a hilarious time the whole time we're together. It's just fantastic. And yet, you don't want people that are completely similar to you. You want like a difference in personality, in life perspective. There's two of us that are that have very deep spiritual backgrounds, and one person in it who doesn't really have any kind of spiritual background whatsoever. Like there's uh, we use the Enneagram as a typing tool
Hmm.
to help
Hmm.
kind of
Nice.
understand ourselves, and there's a real, we're not all loaded up on one number or another. It's like there's a spread there, and so you're trying to check off these boxes of, okay, has some coaching or facilitation skills to be able to help hold the group, equal to, somewhat in the same range as the others, has similar skills in business, or like similar, gifts to share there, has difference in personality, yet there's like a real chemistry and friendship and love there, and it takes time to build up. So it's
Hmm.
it's a rare, and I've come to realize like what a rare and precious gift my mastermind group is.
It is. It really is. Have you ever been in a mastermind group that didn't work for you?
Well, like I said, the first year when I first started my own mastermind group, it worked really well for me, um, and then it started not to, basically because people were in very different stages, and just had different. There was just the commitment kind of faded, and who we were kind of faded. Not who we were, but what do I want to say? Yeah, just we weren't well matched after that first year or so,
Mm.
and it kind of and we made the decision to let it go.
So before we came into the Hangout, you and I were talking about the difference between a mastermind and group coaching. Can you clarify your perspective of what that is?
Yeah, it's a good question because somebody else on my team this past year was asking that question, and I'll tell you that I never really put a lot of thought into the how the different words are used, right? Coaching, mastermind, what have you. So it's like I don't have any kind of a professional slick distinction between that. I do know that I tend to think in my mind that if it's peer led, it's a mastermind, and that if one person is like a paid facilitator, that it's more of like a training group or a coaching group or some kind of a facilitated group. Um, I know that there are people who use the term facilitated mastermind, and I probably used it in conversation in the past,
Mhm.
and I probably the distinction, like in this moment, as I'm thinking about it, masterminding might be um, uh, a good description of a dynamic that arises in a group rather than the whole group. Rather than
Mhm.
naming the group as a mastermind,
Right.
uh, right? Because there are times, even in my brain trust, where one or the other of us has a skill, and maybe we're doing training. It's like, hey, I learned this thing. I want to just teach you all this thing that I learned. That's not masterminding, right? That's
Right.
training,
That's
you
training.
know. And so I'm probably, I think that when we take the time to really be in our hearts and be silent and be connected, and there's some question or issue or challenge or something that's up, and that we take the time to really be in that space with each other, and something arises from our interactions, that's more probably what one might call masterminding or master hearting, or whatever the term is
Right. Right.
that
Right.
you want to use. I don't know how clear that is, but
Well, it's actually quite clear because Napoleon Hill talks about how a mastermind is the third mind, and it really is more of a peer-led type organization. Whereas what a lot of people are calling masterminding is frankly a facilitated training. And I like your term, a facilitated mastermind, because I do see room for both. I do see room for peer-led organizations, and also there are times when there may be something that we really want to learn, and someone may be an expert in that area in our groups, and a session could turn into a facilitated mastermind experience, which is, I love that term,
and
facilitated mastermind.
and I think that also there are people who maybe I've been really blessed in my life to have had a lot of opportunities to learn about teaching and learn about facilitating groups. I mean, even when I was a paramedic, I was a field training officer. I did a lot of training and teaching and mentoring in that role, and then in other roles, and so I've had, and all the people in my group, in my mastermind, have had like multiple various experiences leading retreats, teaching, spiritual teachers, facilitators. But it's very possible that you need a mastermind group, but you and your peers don't yet have that experience for whatever reason in your life. You just, you've had other experiences, but that isn't in your wheelhouse yet. And so it might be really worthwhile to to potentially pay for some period of time for some facilitation so that you can gain that sense of how to be in a group and how to really activate the mastermind. It's probably not strictly necessary. You probably could do it on your own, and there's a lot of books and training to do it. And I could see where someone might really want that kind of support.
Right, right, right. And I do agree with you that participating in a paid event or in a paid ongoing group would benefit someone, because in the very beginning, if you're not used to working in groups, especially if you're an entrepreneur, we as entrepreneurs tend to be very, very insulated. And we tend to be one-man bands, a lot of us, and as solopreneurs specifically. So when you get yourself into a position where you're in a group, you almost don't know how to act and the give and take of being on a team. And it's really important to learn how to do that. And a facilitated type group may be just the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. I think so, and I think that eventually one will want a peer-led mastermind group where you're not paying that money, because other people in our group have coaches, like they have, and I have my Heart of Business team around me, my business director and my director of education, and people around me who can do healings and support. We support each other, and so there's all these different ways that you can get support. And the fantastic thing about a peer-led mastermind is that because you're not paying anyone money to do it and you're coming together voluntarily, there's not that relationship, and so it becomes possible for the people in the group to challenge you at a whole different level. I'm not saying that paid facilitators and teachers can't challenge you, but there's not going to be, hopefully, coaches and trainers that you hire are, unattached to the money they're getting from you, right? And there's been so many times in our mastermind group where somebody said, I think I'm going to do this course, or I think I'm going to hire this person, and the rest of us had said, do you really need to do that? Do you really need to spend that money? And there's been other times where we've urged them to get the support. I'm not saying that support isn't, we're in the business of providing support, and so it's like it can be very, very helpful, and there's times where you don't need it. And so to have this kind of maintenance group, this mastermind group that isn't coming out of your budget, that doesn't have that, there's not a financial piece of the equation, I think just has it's just a different dynamic. There's a different feel to it, and I think there's a benefit to that.
Okay, so one question that just came to mind, Mark, is these peer-led groups, at what point in someone's career do you believe that the peer-led group will work? Because I do know people who are just starting in business, who have never been in business before, who have come together in a quote unquote peer-led group, And from what I saw, it was almost like the blind leading the blind. It just was, they weren't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love your perception, and what I'm getting, I believe, is that to do the peer-led later on in your career, once you've reached a higher level, what's your
Well,
perception?
I think it totally depends on what your intentions are and what your needs are. Um, uh, Peer-led, I think, can work even very early in the career, and probably what people want to be doing is they want to be looking at benchmarks and goals in addition to the internal process. And you shouldn't be, because the value of the mastermind has to do with getting to, for me, I should say that one of the biggest values and benefits of the mastermind is that we get to know each other so well that we know each other's blind spots and patterns that we can spot it in a moment and like stop people before we go too far down. Of course, in past years we were slower on the uptake, but now that so it's a long-term thing. I think that a mastermind group, part of what we should be doing, what you should be doing, is encouraging each other to get the support that you need. So, for instance, if you're in a peer-led mastermind and you have business goals, and and after 3 months or 6 months, you notice, hey, we're not making progress towards our goals, then one of the questions that should come up in that group saying, hey, how can we support each other to get that support? Like, you go take that course, and you go hire that coach, and you let's start bringing this information in and even sharing it with each other and just encouraging each other. But then also being another sounding board. So that there's so many times I've seen people. I mean, we make such an effort at Heart of Business to both deliver the teachings that we know are going to work and to provide the spiritual support. And it can be easy for people to lose their sense of their own sovereignty. Like, oh, somebody's telling me this, and if you're getting feedback not from two different teachers who can be feeding you conflicting information, but taking in information from a teacher and also being in a peer group of people that are committed to helping you stand in your own truth, then you have a better chance probably of integrating what you're learning in a way that's really in alignment with who you are and not just losing your way and becoming a clone of whoever you're learning from,
That is
if
so
you know what I'm
important,
saying.
Mark, what you just said. Becoming a clone of who you're learning. And I also believe, based on what you just said, it's very important to trust your intuition. I know for myself, I was in a mastermind group that was supposedly a mastermind group. It was a facilitated led mastermind group many years ago. And against my intuition, okay, I followed some of the advice that was given to me, and the whole time I felt I wasn't being listened to. This person didn't understand where I was coming from. This person didn't understand my audience. This person didn't understand where I wanted to take my business. But yet, because I paid the money, and because this was somebody who had created millionaires, I went ahead with it. And frankly, 2 years later, I ended up undoing everything
We've
that
seen
I
that
had
one.
done
Yeah.
because I didn't listen to my intuition. So what you
Yeah.
just said is really, really valuable.
And so it's really important to have that sounding board, because when you're new in business, you don't know. Somebody's telling you something. When people come to us, in some of our programs, like our Foundations One Clients and Money program, it's the very basics of like, what do you need to get clients and money in the door? And we try to really balance, like, okay, here's how you access your heart, here's how you know your own truth, here's how you do it, and at the same time, here are things that really work. Don't reinvent the wheel. And so there's always a process of learning and then trying to implement and then integrating and then adjusting and tweaking your implementation to be more on target with you. And it's one of the reasons why we like to pair people up in our groups with each other. It's one of the reasons why we like to see people really connecting with each other in our community. I was talking to one of my individual clients is still in a mastermind group that arose out of a group program that we ran several years ago, and they continue as a peer-led mastermind group. And when I see that happening, I know I just feel so much better as a coach and as a healer and as a trainer, um, knowing that that it's not just me and my client in a box, right? That they have other people to bounce ideas off of,
Nice.
that there's a larger community and a larger ecosystem, right? Ecosystems, we know, are healthier when there's a diversity. And so if there's a diversity of not of opinion, not of I want to make the distinction between trying to learn from many different people at the same time, which can create a lot of noise and confusion,
Yeah.
versus
Chaos.
learning either in a system or an approach, but having a diversity of feedback so that you're not, in a sensory deprivation chamber in the learning process, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And what your words are very, very valuable, and your wisdom is extraordinary. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, because it really adds, and this is a great way to end up this series, this Mastermind series. Your words of wisdom really sum up what everyone else in the series has talked about, and it really is about following your heart. It really is about diversity, and it really is about feeling good about the group that you're in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Mark, can you share with folks how they can connect with you?
Yeah. Come to heartofbusiness.com, heartofbusiness.com, and everybody in the world has a newsletter, and we do too. And what I want to encourage you to do is that if it feels like what I'm saying and who I am and how we do things resonate, subscribe and just check it out and see if what we're offering for free really resonates for you. And if it does, then you can look to see if there's a program or some other more in-depth help that's going to be helpful. But start with the free stuff. We've got all kinds of videos and articles and downloads to give you a taste of how we do things.
Well, thank you so much for your generosity, Mark. You're absolutely brilliant, and I thank you for taking time out of your very busy day to join me here on the Attractionpreneur Hangout and helping me wrap up this Mastermind series. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening in, and stay tuned for the next series that is going to be starting in January with the Attractionpreneur Hangout. I'm Terry Wilderman, your host, and I look forward to checking in with you next time. Take care.